What's going on, guys? Welcome to Full Court Talk, and I have a very special guest here. His name is Mark Schindler. He is a co-creator and co-host of Premium Hoops, and he is a content creator and co-host of the Indie Cornrows. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Spencer. I'm looking forward to this, man. How are things on your end?
Can't complain. I think it's pretty good. Just getting through school and everything like that. How about you?
It's good. I'm trying to survive the weather highs in Ohio. It was 80 yesterday, the sun was out, and it's now like 55 and rainy today. So, we're almost through the summer, but spring in Ohio is not it's not totally my jam, but uh take the good with the bad. I was talking to somebody from New Orleans yesterday. I was like, well, hey, I don't have to worry about hurricanes, so there's that. It works out all right. But no, man, things are good.
That's good. Oh, and congrats on being able to graduate in 2 weeks. That's a huge
Thanks, man. I
accomplishment.
appreciate it. And
Yeah, no
same to
problem.
you. I know you're getting ready to graduate too. So,
Yep, yep.
it's, school life, man. I don't know how you felt, but I've been this whole senior year having everything be online. At least for me, every single class I had was online.
Yeah.
I wasn't even back in Toledo for most of the year. I was back in Cleveland, where I grew up, and just taking classes from my high school bedroom. So it was different, man.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing. Everything's online. It's really weird. Uh, I transferred to Sac State, so I was there for I think like 7 months, and I've been online longer than I was at Sac. So
Yeah, it's no, I feel that too. It's definitely different, and I'm looking forward to just like actually getting to do work and stuff and
yeah,
go from there. But we'll see, man. I don't know how like the next couple months are gonna play out with everything and graduating, but we're here now. So
hey, well, good luck to you. I hope
you too,
everything goes
man.
well. But getting to our first topic, Steph Curry's amazing run. What does it mean for his MVP case? The second topic we're going to talk about, Kevin Love has a tantrum on the court. What does this mean for him going forward? Kobe's Nike deal expires. Um, what does this mean for his one of the most popular shoe lines in the NBA? And who is the worst? Who is the worst talking head for the NBA? Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless, Nick Wright, uh, even Shannon Sharp, Kendrick Perkins. There's so many. We'll
Mhm.
get into that last. But since it's your first time on the show, I'll let you talk first. For what do you think about Steph Curry's amazing run, and do you think he's going to be able to get the MVP?
Yeah. So I mean, just to answer right off the bat, I don't think he's going to win MVP, and I don't really think he should either. Just to be completely honest, he's been awesome. This run has been really great. Like I was watching him play Sacramento the other day, and he hit I think he had. I want to say that the ball got tipped back into the backcourt. He ran back to go get it, came back with the shot clock winding down, and hit a three from like 35 feet out. And I'm like, that's the kind of run he's on right now. I
Yeah,
mean, I think he averaged 40 points per game throughout the month of April so far. Um, he's been on. I mean, he's had probably just about the best individual scoring run of the season. He's a good defender. I mean, obviously doing stuff as a playmaker. The problem is just that Golden State is not a good team right now. It's weird because I try not to give things based off narrative or like I'm not a full time voter yet. Like I mean, I treat it like a full time job, but
yeah,
yeah, obviously you have to be like accredited to do it and chosen to do it. But like in doing my MVP ballot this morning, I think I would have him top five. But it's just hard given precedent to give it to a guy who's not even in the playoffs right now.
yeah,
Um, I think Nikola Jokic has just been the best player in the NBA this entire year. So it's hard for me to give it to anybody else. But I do think like he went from not even being close to being on the ballot for me 2 months ago to now he's top five and deservingly. I don't think he's going to fall out of that. Um, and I don't really think unless Golden State wins every single game from here on out, I just don't think there's a real avenue for him to win it. But he's definitely deserving of being on the ballot. And like even I just keep a running tab of all NBA for me. And this past month he took over Dame's spot for me on the first team. So yeah, I mean Steph's been incredible, man. It's been a joy to watch.
yeah. I'm a Golden State fan, so it's been amazing to watch him just put it together like we thought he would. Um, and I agree. I don't think he should be the MVP unless they were able to somehow get into that sixth or fifth seed. And even then, I think that's going to be a tough run to make for
Mhm.
him. Um, I mean, looking at the numbers, as of today, he's averaging 37 points a game, 52% from the field, 47 from three, and he's hitting 6 threes a game. So he's been insane. Um, and essentially, he forced himself into that conversation uh, with all of the just games he's had the stretch. The record-breaking games with beating Kobe's record for most 30-point games in a row for a 30-year-old. It's been amazing to watch. But even with that being said, I'm still going to put Nikola Jokic ahead of him because we've never seen a big like this, almost on triple-double watch every night. And even Joel Embiid, I would put him up there. But I think the only problem with Joel is his lack of games. He's gotten hurt a lot. And I think had he not gotten hurt, I think he would have been up there. But Nikola Jokic is definitely my pick.
Yeah, I mean, I have Embiid second right now. It's Embiid
Yeah.
second for me and Giannis number three. And I mean, it's not even like the games played doesn't help. But I think it's also just like a lot of people talk about, and Embiid or not even just Embiid. A lot of people when they talk about Jokic, they're like, oh, well, he's giving it all back on defense or something like that. Not true. I mean, he's a
Yeah.
solid defender. He's not awesome, but he does enough in his role. But then the biggest thing is just the playmaking. I mean, Joel has improved a lot as a playmaker this year, but I mean, Jokic does so much to lift that offense, both with his individual scoring and I think you could almost make a case for him for most improved player this year in some regards.
Yeah.
Like going from a guy who I wasn't sure if he was going to come in and be like he's always been like a kind of hesitant scorer. I mean, from watching like he's very capable of scoring when he wants to, but it just like this the last year or last couple of years, he's never been like, all right, I'm gonna go get this bucket unless it's in the fourth quarter or crunch time where they really need it. But now it's the complete opposite. If he has a mismatch, he's going to attack it. If he has any kind of opportunity for easy points, he's taking it. And that's just, it hasn't been that way because he kind of like plays like, and I mean this in the best way, he plays like a supercomputer in some points. Like he's always looking for the most efficient, best mode of basketball. And by discovering that a lot of the times it's him scoring himself, I think that's been the biggest thing for him. So I think Embiid has been awesome though. Like no discredit to him whatsoever. I think it was a lot closer without, missing so many games. But at the same time, I think just like, and I didn't mean that you put it this way, but I think a lot of the talking head people that have brought it up are saying, the only case is because of missed games. I'm like, that's just not true.
Yeah.
It's a little bit discrediting to both Embiid and Jokic to talk about it like that.
Yeah, like Jokic has been one of the most, I guess, transcendent centers we've seen in a long time. His ability to pass and his ability to score almost at will at times, just because of his size, and he has a very nice jump shot. Even though it doesn't look great, it's just his high
Touches the
arc and
ceiling every
everything.
time, man. The arc is ridiculous on it.
It's insane. And it's fun to watch him because he's just this, like, I mean, in the past seasons he was this big pudgy dude, just dominating, and now he's obviously slimmed down a lot, but he has been insane to watch, and I'm happy for him because he went from, I think he would be the only second rounder to win MVP if he wins it.
That's probably not wrong. I feel like, has somebody undrafted won it before? I don't think so. I can't, like, I feel like I'm pretty good with basketball history stuff, but when it goes back past the 90s, I'm a little bit lost. But
Yeah,
regardless, I mean, for him to, for a second rounder win, it's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, it's like, he's such an interesting juxtaposition of looking at the different ways that players get to their spots. Like, I mean, I think a lot of times people are like, oh, well, Jokic is just a finesse player. And I think there are a lot of comparisons you could draw to him and Embiid in terms of just being power players. Like,
yeah,
you don't really think about it as much because Jokic isn't quite the physical force, but he's really good at just, bumping guys, getting the angling he wants and just like creating space through that. And yeah, he's fun to watch, man. It's been a real shame that Jamal's out now.
yeah.
And I mean, they're just constantly banged up. Like Will Barton went out a couple games after Jamal Murray, and he should be back soon, but still, like, it's just Michael Porter Jr. almost got hurt last night. Like, it's a lot of injuries.
Yeah, and speaking of like Jokic's like just post game, I think when they were playing the Warriors, Draymond and Steph were coming on a double team, and Jokic just looked one way and spun the other way. And it was just such a simple thing, but you can tell that he's improved on a lot of his offensive game. Um, but moving on to the next topic, Kevin Love has a temper tantrum on the court. Um, I'm sure you saw this, and I'm sure everyone saw this. But to set it up, it seemed like Kevin Love got shoved pretty hard in the back, and I believe the Wizards scored on them, or no, the Raptors scored, and it looked like Kevin Love was more frustrated with the refs than his team, but ref passed him the ball, just bats it back. I think it was either Stanley Johnson or OG Anunoby picked it up, passed it to Malachi Flynn, and they hit a three. But so, what do you think about this entire situation?
Yeah, man, it's really weird to look at. I think, in trying to really parse through it, like the whole Kevin Love saga, post LeBron has been kind of weird. He's hasn't played a lot because of injuries. Um, he's been very vocal about his struggles with mental health, and I mean, I really respect that, and can vibe with that on a lot of levels. In some regard, I feel like this has been completely overblown. Like, not that I think like he definitely should be reprimand. It sounds weird saying reprimand and talking about
Yeah,
someone who's like 32 years old, but like I don't know, it was weird on like a team sense. Obviously, it was kind of bickery and you could say immature, but at the same time, like I just didn't think it was that big of a deal. Like it's like whatever, I get being frustrated where he's coming from. He hasn't been awesome on court. Like he's been fine, but he hasn't really. He's helped them look better, but he hasn't been himself an awesome. Like he hasn't been the same. He's very clearly not the go-to guy that I think you envision. Like when Kevin Love signs that deal, I think it's 3 years ago now. You envision, and I'm sure he did to an extent too. And this is my I'm getting to my point in just a second, but like you look at it when you're Kevin Love and you're 28 or 29 years old, and you're like, okay, I'm going to sign a max deal. I'm going to stay in Cleveland. We're going to rebuild for a year or two, and I'll be like the face of that. And he's gotten injured, which hasn't helped. But also, I mean, he just isn't the face of that very clearly. And part of that is the injuries. Also, part of that is just, I mean, the rebuild is a lot more. I mean, I think I obviously I wasn't in on those meetings. You weren't either. None of us were.
yeah,
But like I'd imagine Kobe Altman in the front office sold him on, okay, well, you're going to stay here and we're going to the next great Cleveland team or the next good Cleveland team is going to be around you. And I think that, just very clearly is not the case. And I think a lot of it is on Cleveland. They're the ones who signed into the deal. Like if you offer, you probably wasn't going to get that deal anywhere else. Like,
yeah.
so I don't know. It's an interesting case study. Like the whole thing with him in Cleveland in general has been kind of a joke's the wrong way to put it, but it just hasn't worked out well on either side. And it's hard because I don't think, I mean, there's nobody who's going to trade for that contract.
Yeah, no one.
Unless even when it's on an expiring, I think it's an expiring next year.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
believe
know
so.
who's trading for that because it's $30 million. Like it's a lot of money to move, but I don't know, man. We'll see. What did you think of it?
I think when you look at it, like a lot of big media sites were posting just the him batting the ball away.
Mhm.
So I thought, oh wow, it looks really bad. But then when you see the full clip, he gets pretty violently shoved, and I think it was a pretty obvious foul. They just didn't call it.
Mhm.
And that made me think, okay, he's just frustrated with the ref. So it's not that big of a deal. And I understand his frustrations. He obviously hasn't played like he thought he would. I'm sure he thought he was going to go back into his Minnesota form. Um, but it just hasn't happened at least. But no matter how frustrated you are, you shouldn't just give up free points like that, even
Yeah.
if you're on a pretty crappy Cleveland team. Um, so it's tough to say, but I feel bad for him because he went from the top of the world uh, in 2016 to essentially just crumbling down, uh, getting beaten down by the Warriors, and then coming to this where he's just a guy on a team who maybe I think Colin Sexton liked the tweet saying that Kevin loves
Yeah.
robbing Cleveland.
Yeah.
So
He disliked that he unliked that really quickly, but
yeah,
I have a screenshot of that still because my friend sent it to me. I was like, oh
yeah,
boy, this is interesting.
Yeah, it's tough. Kevin Love has been at the top of the NBA, and now unfortunately he's at the bottom. So it's interesting to see that cycle for him.
Well, I wouldn't even say he's at the bottom yet. It's just like it's kind of it's part of the ebb and flow of guys getting older. Like we saw with Blake Griffin, this is like to a lesser extent. I mean, the way that people talked about Blake was really frustrating to me at the beginning of the year because it's like a lot of people forgot that. I mean, he was second team All NBA 2 years ago. Was
Yeah,
fantastic. I mean, absolutely dragged Detroit into the playoffs when they had no right being there. Um, I mean, that was probably the best year of his career. It
yeah,
completely reworked who he was as a player. And it's just, I think a lot of people are short sighted in how they look at some of these guys. And I mean, it's been cool. I mean, Blake has actually looked kind of decent in Brooklyn, and it's all about, can you transition to a smaller role, which is, it's something I'm always fascinated in, like looking at that stuff and writing about it because that's really hard to do. Like, I think you look at a guy like Kevin Love, he was a huge recruit coming out of Oregon before he went to UCLA. And
yeah,
so he's never not been a featured option since, he was like 11 years old. And I think about that a lot because I mean, I never got to that level, but I mean, can you imagine being the best player on your team every single year for, 2 decades. And then finally you're like, oh, well, shit, I can't. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear in here, but you
you're
get to
good.
the point and you're like, well, darn, I don't know if I can, like, I'm not physically capable of playing the way that allowed me to play like that. And
Yeah,
transitioning into a lower role is difficult. And changing your game is difficult. So, yeah, it's something I'm really interested to see how things work out for him, though. And I would not be surprised if there is some kind of deal that either maybe they buy him out this summer, or he gets sent somewhere because it seems like a very tenuous relationship right now from the outside looking in.
yeah. I was shocked that they didn't buy him out earlier, um, just because he hasn't played very well. He's been injured all season. Um, I'm hoping he gets bought out because I think he'd be a great player on a lot of good teams. But
He probably, yeah. So I'm just looking at his deal right now. I just pulled it up. So he still has 2 more guaranteed years. So
yeah,
he's probably not going to get bought out. That's just like too much money because it's 31.3 next year and 28.9 in 22-23. So the odds of him getting bought out are pretty minimal. Because Dan Gilbert is very frugal.
yeah.
He is like one of the least flexible owners in the NBA. So I don't foresee that happening.
Well, Cleveland better. Or Kevin Love might as well just enjoy it. I don't know what else
Yeah,
to tell him at this point. At least he's got some
yeah.
young guys. You know,
They're looking better. I
I,
mean, Darius Garland's been awesome this year.
I've loved him. Colin Sexton still
I
looks really good.
really enjoy Colin Sexton as a player. He has a lot of I think a lot of people like to point out his flaws more than anything else, but he's a good basketball player.
Yeah,
So I
he's
mean, I
a
think they have something going there.
yeah. I think they're a kind of far away, but I think they have the core at least, and I think with another high draft pick and a pretty good draft this year, could be really good for them.
Yeah, 100%, man.
But going on to our next topic, Kobe's Nike deal expires. Um, this was a very interesting situation. From what I've read and understood, it seems like the deal between Kobe Bryant and Nike has come to an end. And according to Vanessa Bryant, it seems like Nike was unwilling to give them a lifetime deal. And so they let it end. And it's interesting to me because, for reference, LeBron James, Cristiano Ronaldo, and Michael Jordan all have lifetime deals under Nike. I believe Kobe fits into that, legend status with those three. Um, but I don't know the logistics of it. I don't know how much his shoes make for the company. Um, but the interesting thing was, as soon as he passed away last year, they started releasing Kobe's and his jerseys on the sneakers app, and they made a huge profit off of it, off of his death. And it kind of just didn't sit well with me because they were selling jerseys on a sneakers app,
Mhm.
and essentially they're going for a lot off of resale market. So I didn't think that was cool. Um, and then to not give him a lifetime deal after everything that he's done for Nike, I think kind of felt like a slap in the face to her. So I understand why she's mad. And I actually looked it up. The most popular shoe last year was the Nike Kobe 4 Procho. And
It's awesome. That's my favorite Kobe of all time. Other than the Kobe 2 is really nice too, but the Kobe 4 is like fantastic.
yeah, it seems like the earlier Kobe's are the most popular. I've never worn one. I got the Grinches recently, so I'm excited to try them out whenever I can. But it's pretty interesting that Nike wouldn't give him a lifetime deal after seeing like all he's done and all they've basically used his shoes over the past 2 years to get a profit.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I'm not like the smartest with understanding sneaker deals and the way that things work, but I mean, just coming from where I do and my knowledge of everything and being in the NBA, like it was weird. I didn't really understand that. I understood exactly where Vanessa Bryant came from and saying, okay, if you're not going to give us a lifetime deal, we're just going to move on. I mean, to me, like without knowing the numbers and the way that things sell, like I can't remember the last time I went a day out in public without seeing somebody wearing Kobe's. I mean, it's not as popular now, but like the Kobe apparel used to be like all over the place, especially in like the early 2010s when the Lakers won their most recent title before this last one. Yeah, I can't really understand why Nike did this. I mean, maybe they looked at it in terms of, well, and it sounds terrible, but I just know like, okay, the way businesses think, you know, Kobe's not around anymore. He can't market the product himself. So maybe there's not as much value there, which I don't really understand. I've learned through especially like understanding like the way AAU circuits work and getting a better understanding of youth sports and things in general. Like shoe companies have a much bigger hand in the way things play out in recruiting and just overall things that go on before guys get to the NBA and in the NBA too. I mean, shoe companies have Ethan Strauss, who is a complicated writer. I'm not really a big fan of his, but he wrote a really great book on the Warriors and talked a little bit in depth about how, you know, Kevin Durant's shoe deal is part of the reason that he ended up with the Warriors. And looking at stuff like that, like it plays a big impact. So I think I would just say with the looking at that stuff overall, like, yeah, it's murky in looking at the way that those things play out. And I think that they've frankly made a mistake in doing that and letting them and not giving them a full lifetime deal. But I don't know, man. It's hard to understand the way that this stuff plays out. Like, I don't know. Like, what else do you think on that?
I think it's just like it sucks for all of the real Kobe fans because my co-host who wasn't able to make it today, CJ, he is a huge Kobe fan, and every time they release a pair of Kobe's, he's on there trying to get it, and I think he's only gotten it once. And it wasn't even him hitting on the shoes; it was his friend who worked at Foot Locker got him for him.
Yeah.
So it sucks for the real Kobe fans because they're not able to even get the jerseys or the shoes that they want because Nike is releasing them at such a small limit. You know, it's so difficult to get his shoes, and I think that was one of the things that I know Vanessa had wanted to change was that she wanted everything to be like a general release, so everything would be easier to get. Because there are a ton of Kobe fans, and I think he was one of the most influential stars of our era. So I think it's frustrating for people that weren't able to get the shoes or the apparel that they wanted just because Nike was kind of being a little greedy with it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And like you mentioned before too, with just Kobe in general, like he is on that same level as Mike and LeBron. And I mean, what other shoe companies have those kind of connections? Like, I mean, Steph's shoes, not to be unkind, but Steph's shoes have not done well. They've kind of flopped.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, it is what it is. Puma, I actually think Puma's making a really big push in terms of what they're doing with their shoe company. And their shoes actually look good too, to be completely honest.
They're pretty comfortable too.
Yeah. And Adidas is just like, I mean, it just, in my opinion and watching stuff, like Adidas has really fallen off since we were kids. Like they had D Rose D Roses were really big when he was with Chicago, but then, I mean, since then, who else? Like, I don't even know who big Adidas athletes are right now. Like PG's shoes have sold really well for Nike. I actually think PG's, it might not be now, but PG2s were like the most worn shoe in the NBA.
Yeah.
I think 2 seasons ago, and like KD's and Kyrie's both sell well, but like it's just like way more guys are wearing Kobe's. Like Kobe just has way more name recognition or name brand than Kyrie's, or even KD's at this point. Like it's a really odd thing. And I just like from an observational standpoint, I'm really interested to see what happens with that. And I hope things like, Vanessa Bryant and their party can still profit off of it, and maybe keep making shoes in their own right, and maybe they start up their own brand. I don't know how they would do that. It's hard to compete with Nike because they kind of have them and the other shoe companies have a stranglehold on it a little bit. But
Yeah, it's tough. And I feel really bad for her because, like, I'm sure going through this entire thing only a year after everything that happened, like, it's tough. And to be reminded almost every day, it's a tough thing to have. But I think she's, at the end of the day, she's just trying to, like, make sure her kids are okay. And even though they should be after all the earnings that he's had, I think she wants to make sure that her family is just taken care of for the rest of their life. And I don't blame her for that.
Yeah, definitely.
But getting on to a topic I'm pretty excited about, who is the worst NBA talking head? The only reason I brought this up is because Skip Bayless.
He's awful, man. He's
so
bad.
Yeah, Skip Bayless, I think he is. So I had two people, Nick Wright and Skip Bayless. Nick Wright I don't like because he's a huge LeBron fan and a huge Warrior hater. Like, I'm fine if you're a LeBron fan. Shannon Sharp is a great LeBron fan because I think he's unbiased at times, and I can respect that. Nick Wright, he's interesting guy. I remember he said the Warriors are going to get worse when Kevin Durant signed with Golden State. Obviously, he was wrong. But he also just says some stupid things about Curry, about saying he's just not good enough to carry a team, which, I mean, Curry's doing the best he can, at least.
Yeah. I mean, like, I would disagree with it too, because it's just like, I mean, even if you put LeBron on this team right now, like, are they that much better? I don't think so. I mean, it's just, not to get like too nitty gritty, but it's tough. Like, you go from, and I think I don't want to put it all on Steve Kerr either, because I think that's been way too much. Like, I think Steve Kerr is a great coach. I put a lot of this on the front office. Like, I don't understand the direction of the front office in a lot of regards. Like, on paper, I mean, you can, like, Kelly Oubre is a good basketball player. I think he's gotten clowned way too much this year. But he just doesn't fit what Golden State does and what they're doing. Andrew Wiggins, same deal. He on balance can be a good basketball player, but like in the way that they were trying to utilize him and want to play the offense, it just doesn't make sense. Like, part of it, a lot of people always bring up, oh, well, Steph Curry needs to run more pick and roll. He should be running pick and roll every possession. Like, well, first of all, who is he running it with? And who is anybody else guarding off ball? Like, you can just hard close out on Andrew Wiggins or Kelly Oubre, leave Draymond wide open. And I mean, that's reductive. Like, Draymond does awesome stuff as a playmaker, but point being, like, there just isn't a lot on the team around Steph that you can do to give him the offensive freedom to just do whatever. And he's still doing awesome stuff. They went from having some of the best quick decision makers and playmakers, up and down the roster. Like, in that, I think that's something that doesn't get talked about enough, is like during that run that they had, I mean, you have Sean Livingston coming off the bench, and like, his numbers aren't gaudy or anything, but he just knows what he's doing on court, and he's a great fit in that system.
He produced when he needed to.
Exactly. Produced when he needed to, but also like, it's just like the way that Golden State ran their offense, doing everything is all about decision-making, being quick, playing kind of free-flowing. And you have guys like Kelly Oubre and Andrew Wiggins who just aren't quick decision makers with the ball. Like, and it's not even like, I think I saw somebody call Kelly Oubre a selfish player. And I don't like that notion at all.
No,
like, I think there are just guys who get tunnel vision when they're playing basketball. It happens. It's not like they're trying to take over shit. They know Steph's a better player than them. But it's just, that's part of the reason why the offense isn't as good. The defense has been fine because you have a lot of guys with length, and I've liked that. But yeah, offensively, that's how it works. So that was, I didn't mean to like butt in, but it's just like, it's it's an annoying talking point for me with the whole Steph thing, because this team would be a lot worse without Steph on it, as we saw last year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just,
Yeah, and I will say Andrew Wiggins has been much better than he was on the Timberwolves, I believe. He's been a little more efficient, and defensively, he's been a defensive stopper for us. Kelly Oubre has taken 6-7 months to get used to an offense that probably shouldn't have taken that long, but it is what it is with him. But Skip Bayless is a Warriors hater. He is I'll rephrase that. He is a hater.
Skip Bayless is just a hater in general.
He seems like a bitter old man most of the time. If you're not Kawhi Leonard, he's gonna hate on you. It's just so interesting to hear him talk sometimes. Like when he said, I think last week, he said that Bill Walton was better than Steph. Not to keep bringing up Steph, but this is where I get most of my points, just because they talk about him a lot. But he just says so many stupid things, and it's bad when even Shannon Sharp just all his heart disagrees with it, So it's frustrating. I'm gonna say Skip Bayless just because he's such a annoying person, and I'm sure that's what Nick Wright and Skip Bayless get paid to do. They get paid to rile up fans and basically annoy them, But I think the most annoying thing is his undying love for Michael Jordan, and just how he just defends him so much. And I'm sure Michael Jordan doesn't know who Skip Bayless is like that.
Yeah. It's interesting. So I guess I would just, if I had to give a concrete answer, I think I would say Skip Bayless is probably the person who really just gets on my nerves the most. But that's also I don't watch First Take. I don't even watch Sports Center sometimes, because I get my news a lot from just, Twitter. You can get your news from if you're connected to the right people on Twitter, and if you're really checked into the right things, you can. I don't mean that in terms of I just mean sports. I don't encourage people to get all their news from Twitter. But in terms of with it's hard, because on one hand, I get that you want the Kendrick Perkins and Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp and all these guys are the guys who are, they drum up views, and you need that in the middle of the day or early morning on TV or whatever. But at the same time, I get frustrated with it, because the amount that we pay these guys, and I get it, they're the big money draw people, but if you really want to present a sport better, which ESPN should, considering how many NBA games they air, if they really wanted to present the game better, they would have people who know what they're talking about, because that's just the problem. Skip Bayless, Nick Wright, Shannon Sharp, Stephen A., they're smart people in the world of sports and being TV media personalities, but they don't watch the game at enough of a level, or they're not as in touch with everything. And this is not to say that they're stupid people or something. They're doing their job, whatever. I don't agree with really anything that they say, but that's what they get paid to do. But the problem is just that these media companies aren't putting people on spot who know what they're talking about and who care about what they're talking about, frankly, too. We see this on broadcasts for games. It's a lot better with local media markets, but on national markets, you have Mark Jackson just constantly disparaging the way the game is played, and grumpy old man because he's not coaching the Warriors. And there's a lot more reasons for that than just on-court stuff. But I think a lot of it comes down to, we try and use recognizable names instead of using more credible sources. And that's what I would like to see change. And I really want to be part of the face of that change. I know it's a lot. I'm 23 years old, so I'm asking a lot out of myself, but I think I can do it. But the point being, I just think that's a lot of it for me. You have, and I'm not trying to say oh, boohoo, journalism is, dying or some crap like that. I don't believe that at all. I think it is changing a lot. The fact that I don't remember, I'll have to pull it up right now. I think Skip Bayless got re-signed for multi-million dollars per year.
Yeah.
And
I think you're right.
Fox Sports 1 is they're cutting a ton of actual analysts, people who know what they're talking about. Same thing with ESPN, paying Stephen A. Smith, this massive, like an NBA contract, and they're cutting actual coverage left and right. And it's just, at some point you have to realize you're part of your own downfall. Like, okay, if you keep feeding into this, because I can tell you right now, ESPN's going to look at it. Like if they were to listen to this pod, they'd be like, well, Stephen A. Smith sells. That's where we get most of our views from. I'm like, well, what if you tried reinvesting and making things work? Like if you actually push the local media coverage and try to make that important, like maybe you're bringing on, like if you're talking about the Timberwolves one day, which would never happen on ESPN unless somebody's getting traded. But like, let's say you actually do want to talk about the Timberwolves on ESPN someday, bring on like your local ESPN coverage guy. Like, I don't know, like things like that. There has to be, and it's hard too. Cause like you go from like people like you or me who are like really tuned in and love the NBA. And there are a lot more casual people. Because there's nothing wrong with being a casual fan. That's like what I always try and tell people. Cause that's frustrating to me because I don't think it's not normal for people to want to watch 82 games every single night. Every single season and watch, 4 or 5 games a night. Like that's not for everybody. But I also think that's part of it too. I would like to see the schedule change and like not play as many games because, just having this many games delineates how important each game is. And then we get all those other stupid conversations on First Take and whatever the other one is. I can't even remember right now. But yeah, I think it's a lot of things that flow into it together. And I try not to be like, I definitely will get some takes off on how annoyed I am with the inside the NBA guys or looking at, anything that pops up with my timeline that's just blatantly stupid from the talking heads. But it's their own doing in a lot of ways, but also like that's what people watch. So
yeah. I personally don't turn on FS Sports 1.
That's a great idea.
Won't turn on unless I see it on like Twitter, like a video. I'll watch it and then I'm just like, why did I watch that?
Yes. Yeah.
There's just too many of like, you can see all these talking heads are pretty casual. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you can tell that they just don't watch enough games to understand what they're saying. And I think that's the frustrating part. So, it's frustrating, but they get paid a lot to do what they do. So good for them. But, I do wish that they had more real fans or like real analysts who actually watch the games like you and I, just to talk about what we think about the game that just had been played. Like, someone that essentially just covers that team, a beat writer, a beat analyst. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I think that's where they really could make a change. I don't know if they're going to, and I don't know enough, about the way that money plays out to make it work. Like, but I do think that would be like the better avenue, have actually try it instead of just saying, well, that's not what makes us money. Like, okay, well, be willing to take a hit maybe to try and change what you're doing for a better long-term product, but does not seem to be in the cards right now. So look, there are some really great private ventures that are popping up. Like The Athletic is really good.
Yeah.
But even they don't have as much local media coverage as they did when they started. Like they cut Indiana's beat writer for basketball. They've never had anybody in Charlotte. They just got somebody back in Memphis a couple months ago, if I remember correctly. Like, they're a really good avenue, but just relatively, they're small compared to ESPN or Fox Sports or anything. And it's more like diehard people who are really buying into it. So I don't know. We'll see though.
Yeah, but that's going to do it for the 41st podcast. So thank you for Mark for coming on. This was a lot of fun. But check our links down in the description, and that's going to do it for us.
Thanks for having me, man. It was a good time.
No problem.